What is going on, Empire Builders? It's Brian Downard, and we are here at episode number 47. I have Andrea Emerson here on the show today. Andrea, how you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. So Andrea is an extremely talented writer, and she helps B2B and B2C content writers go from side hustlers to full-time. So me and her are on the same wavelength for sure, because that's what I love doing and helping people do. So I'm excited to have you on the show today and talk a little bit about that.
Oh, thank you. I look forward to it.
Cool. So why don't, in your own words, tell us a little bit about yourself and then kind of how you got to where you are today.
Sure. So as you mentioned, I'm a freelance content writer. I write mostly for tech and healthcare brands. And then I help other writers do what I do and build a freelance business. And, as I tell you my story, keep in mind there are many reasons that drove me to self-employment. And there wasn't one big trigger. It was just a perfect storm of reasons that steered me toward freelancing and building my own business. But I worked in corporate environments for about 20 years in various marketing functions. And for a long time, I loved that. Even the parts that people complain about, putting on a suit, the drive to work, I actually loved all that stuff. I thrived in that environment.
Interesting.
And then about 5-ish years ago, I was a brand manager for a tech company, and my job had evolved into something that I just didn't enjoy anymore. And I was very open about that with my boss. I said, look, you're not getting my best because I'm not working from my strengths. My job has changed, and a lot of the stuff is my weakness. They're not things that I enjoy. And she said, I understand. I get you. Right now we need you in this function, but hang in there because there's this opportunity coming next year where we can move you and you can do the things that you enjoy. So I said, okay, cool. I can wait. I can be patient. So around that same time, my parents live overseas. They're from Brazil, and they got very ill. So I started flying to Brazil a couple times a year, sometimes at a moment's notice, to take care of emergencies. And again, my employer was very accommodating, but what happened was I would fly to Brazil, be with my parents, then I'd come back. I had blown through all my vacation time for the year, and I still have little kids, so I was really struggling with finding, enough time with my family. So we have those reasons piling up, right? I wasn't happy with my job. I was burnt out. It was not stuff that I enjoyed, and then just the time flexibility challenges. And then the position that I had been waiting for a year was given to someone else while I was on vacation, to an outsider.
Wow.
I was livid. I was heartbroken. And I thought, I'm never again giving an employer that much control over my time, my career path, the kind of work that I get to do. So the first thing that I did, I immediately just emailed my network, just past coworkers and bosses. And I had dabbled in freelancing a little bit in the past. So I emailed those people and just let them know I was open for business and open to freelance work. And my plan was to give myself a 6-month deadline. And I thought, if I can secure, first of all, I'm going to go after marketing agencies because I know they have a high need, an ongoing need for my services. And if I can secure 2 clients on a retainer agreement, then I feel comfortable enough to jump into this full time. So that's what I did. And by month 5, I was ready to make the switch.
Awesome. Well, first of all, that's an awesome story. And I love the self-awareness that you have too. Most people, would be miserable or just go through the motions and not understand that what they're doing is a disconnect from what they're actually passionate about and what they're good at. So I love that. And it's funny that just that short story too, there's already so much good advice in just that. Like when you're starting the business, reaching out to your personal network, setting a goal for yourself. So all of that already, let's just unpack that a little bit.
Sure.
I'd love to get into maybe a little bit about, so when you decided to go freelance, you started to hit up your network. What did that look like? What did you say to these people, and how did you, decide who would be a good referral source or who might be a good client? I just love hearing about that.
Yeah. I don't know how unique my situation is, but I had always maintained good relationships with past employers and past coworkers and stayed in touch here and there. And occasionally I would get a call from a past employer saying, hey, can you help us with this or that? So it was easy for me to say, hey, I'm open to freelance projects. I'm trying to build this on the side. I didn't let them know that I was looking to leave my job, but I was just letting them know that I was, could you use some help with this? And actually, as I'm talking, I'm thinking about something else that I advise people today is when they're pitching themselves, not to focus so much on them and what they gain from it, but what does the outcome look like? So instead of saying to someone, do you have some work for me? Or can you use some writing services? I might say, could you use some help in attracting clients, and converting more sales on your website? And then let me show you how we can do that through content. But the people that already know you, that already like you, it's an easy ask just to let them know, hey, I want to make you aware if you see any opportunities, just let me know.
Yeah. So did you pick up the phone? Was this like an email thing or?
Oh, I'm a phone phobe. I hate the phone. So
Me too.
all the prospecting I've ever done in my life was all via email. I only pick up the phone when somebody shows enough interest that they want to have that, that initial conversation. But the initial approach, I've done just via email.
Yeah, well, I love that approach because, and not just, email outreach, but reaching out to your network, because I feel like so many people, when they start their business, they're afraid of what people might think of them, or they'll be judged by their family and friends. But I'm the same way. My best clients came from people in my personal network that I've been able to turn into referrals and really grow my business from. So I think people shouldn't ignore that at all. So tell me also, did you quit your job just outright? Were you working the job while you did freelance clients? Like, when did you decide to quit? Or where was the overlap there?
As soon as possible. But, this isn't necessarily something that I would recommend, but I was honest about it with my boss months before I left, and we set up a plan. I said, I want to take you and fulfill my goals and my commitments here until the end of the fiscal year, which happened to be like June. So I will stay with you until June to meet all of these goals. Excuse me, let me silent my phone.
No worries.
And at that point, actually, instead of telling them I was leaving, here's what I did. I said, I would like to switch to a contract agreement. Instead of me being your employee, I would like to convert to a contract agreement, and then I would focus on just content services. So I pretty much sold them as one of my first retainer clients, and they're still one of my clients today.
Hell yeah, that is an awesome story. You can give your middle finger to the 9-to-5 and then get them as a client. Well, it speaks volumes, though, to maintaining relationships and not burning bridges. A couple of my first jobs, I don't know if they would have ever turned into clients, but I burned bridges just because I hated it. I was so burnt out from the job. I just said, screw this place, and I left. So I think there's something to be said about maintaining that relationship. So how long ago was this that you made the leap full time?
It's a little fuzzy. I'm going to say 5 years, somewhere around there.
Okay, awesome. And so tell me then, after you decided to make that leap, what that felt like as, a new entrepreneur. Like, what was their fear? Was there excitement? Explain to me that emotion.
I was fully prepared to struggle, and I know that most people do. But that actually didn't happen because I had been doing such a good job prospecting, before I left the job and building it on the side. And I think I was, I'm trying not to sound braggy, but I thought I was pretty smart in who I targeted and who I went after. And let me just tell you my approach. I don't know how applicable it will be to everybody watching us, but maybe we can make a wider application.
Yeah.
So as a writer, I knew that I wanted to talk to people who had a lot of money for content, and people who already understood the value of content marketing and wanted it. So that for me meant companies that had a marketing department or had a marketing director, marketing manager, because then I wouldn't have to spend time educating them on why they should want content.
Right.
And I knew that they already had budget set aside for it. On the flip side, if I were just targeting a small restaurant down the street, they may not, content marketing may not be on their radar. They may not understand it. I would have to kind of build their knowledge a little bit, build their desire for content, and which usually amounts to a lot of free consulting. And then when you finally get them interested, you might find, well, they can't afford you anyway. They don't have money for this. So I kind of put aside those folks altogether, and I just went after marketers who I knew already had an interest in content marketing.
That's awesome. It's like the 80-20 rule, right? I mean, the small places you focus on can have the biggest results. And I think, personally I went where my early opportunities were, and I realized, I'm still battling. I'm in the home and garden space, just where I found opportunities, but I'm battling these old school businesses and that mentality of, you're right, having to educate them about their problem that they don't even think that they have. Mm-hmm. So I love that you are going after people who actually have a built-in need. Mm-hmm. That's solid advice. So what would you tell someone who either is working, 9 to 5 and wants to make the leap, or they're kind of in that gray area right now, how to go approach these types of people in a way that's not coming off as, me, because a lot of people are afraid to be salesy. And again, you don't like the phone. So I feel like you're that same way. So explain to me that.
Let's see. I think you had it. Hold on. You asked me how to approach those people, and then did you also ask me about the fear of? Well,
no. Just what advice would you give to someone who is in that gray area right now? They want to leave their 9 to 5, and maybe they have a client. They're doing some freelancing. How do they go and approach the right people, and how do they identify the right people too?
Right. I would look for people who show signs that they are already maybe kind of trying to do what you offer, but they're not doing a great job of it because they're not experts. They have a lot on their plate. Let me think about this.
Well, that's great advice. That's how I do Facebook outreach. I go find pages who I can tell that they're posting regularly and they're trying, but they don't understand. You have to pay a little bit and do these certain things in the right steps.
Right. They're taking some steps toward it. They show a clear interest. Maybe they're doing a really poor job, or they're inconsistent. It becomes too much for them. If somebody's, for example, in the fitness space, go after, and I see a lot of people doing this right, actually, go after people who already show that they're working out. They're checking in at the gym. They're having conversations in groups about health and fitness. They're already all in, but often they need some expert guidance to discern, what's good advice, what's bad advice, but they're already throwing up these flags out there and showing you, I'm into this.
Yeah, that's really, really solid advice. So if you're watching this and you're prospecting right now and you're not having luck and people are just telling you they're not interested, you maybe want to ask yourself, are the people that I'm going after actually want to do what you're trying to sell them? Because you're going to waste a lot of time trying to sell people something that they don't think they need.
Yeah, I like to say that I like to talk to people who are already sold on it. Yeah. I don't have to sell them the idea that what I do has value. The only thing that I have to sell them on is that I'm the right person for them, that I'm pleasant to work with. I'm going to give them results, and I have the skill set and the experience to get them where they want to go. But I don't have to convince them that they need what I'm selling. They already get it.
Yeah, for sure. So really, really solid advice. I appreciate that. Now let's move, a little bit further along in your journey. So you got a couple of clients. You are full-time in your business now. You're starting to make moves. How are you now bringing in a consistent stream of leads? Or what are the things that you're doing? Is it the referrals, outreach?
Yeah. I'm still refining this and learning as I go. I don't know that I have mastered it, but from the beginning, I knew that I wanted to focus on building long-term relationships. I didn't want to just bring in a client to a project, see ya, goodbye, and then constantly bring in new people. I wanted recurring business from the same clients. So that's what I look for. I look for companies that seem to have an ongoing need so that I can keep bringing them back again and again. So my number one source of business is just repeat clients, just clients that either have a recurring need or they actually signed a retainer agreement with me, which is actually, I love retainers. After I complete a couple of projects with a client that went well, I might approach them and say, you seem to have an ongoing need for this. Here's a way for us to save you some time and money. If we just go for a flat monthly retainer, which is equivalent to a subscription, they're subscribing to me, basically. Then you get someone who is already intimately familiar with your business, your goals, your audience, someone who can hit the ground running. So you can just, for less than what you would spend hiring out individual projects here and there. So I always try to convert them to retainers. So repeat business, that's my number one. And then referrals is another big one. And one unexpected sort of referrals that has worked well for me was just when clients move jobs. You know, they move on to a different company. I give them a little time to kind of get settled in, and then I might follow up and say, hey, do you have a need for me at your new company? Or can you introduce me to, to people in there? And that's happened a couple of times that they brought me with them.
That's awesome. I think that's an underutilized tactic. I read this, that people in new positions are more likely to make purchases. They come into a new business, they want to make changes, do big things. So
they want to make their mark quickly. Yeah,
exactly. So really, really solid advice. Now, are you doing any type of cold outreach? Do you have any, prospecting that you're doing? What's that look like for you?
Yeah. Something I love LinkedIn as a place to both identify and communicate with new prospects. And what I like to do is go through my network, especially my clients, and look who they're connected with. Are there any mutual acquaintances that I can capitalize on? You mentioned somebody that we both know called Doug, and I did some work with Doug. So I might look to see who's connected with Doug. Oh, this guy would be a great client. So I might send a message to Paul and say, hey, Paul, I see we both know Doug. I've done a lot of work with, just kind of drop his name a little bit and introduce myself that way. So but usually
that's good.
I just use the advanced search functions. You don't have to have the paid membership level to do that, and just nail in the titles, the job titles that I'm targeting and the industries, and go about it that way.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I always tell people when they're doing cold outreach, try to have some common denominator with the person you're reaching out to. Like if it's 100% cold, that's going to be a little bit more difficult, but I have a big client in the patio furniture space, and everyone knows them, so I always name drop them. And I go to the people who I know have worked with them, because when I name drop it, they're impressed. Like, hey, I work with so-and-so. I'd love to connect with you too. And they're always interested and impressed. So that's, you and I are definitely on the same page. So I'm going to take a step back, actually. I wanted to get into retainers a little bit because I'm working on a product around that, because I think it's so important. And for me personally, it's what allowed me to go from delivering pizzas and being a tour guide to actually running a full-time business. Now, I'd love to hear your take on this, because as a writer, I feel like you can sometimes be lumped into that group of commoditized hourly rates. How would you or what would you say to someone who is charging hourly for their work, but they want to move to a retainer and get paid monthly?
Sure. I had that conversation sometime last year with a client. I had a client on retainer, and that client left the job, and the new guy came in and wanted to kind of rework the terms of our agreement. And he really wanted me to go to an hourly, not only go to an hourly, but he wanted some pretty comprehensive reporting of how I was spending my time.
Yeah.
And the two arguments that I came back with were, time is a really poor measurement of the value that a piece of content or whatever you're delivering is bringing to that client. I could spend an hour on this and it could do nothing for you, or I could spend 20 minutes on something that's going to give you, 10, 20 leads in the next week or so. Yeah. So the time that I spend on something doesn't really reflect how much is going to impact your business. And two, as I get better at my job, more knowledgeable about your company, as I become a faster writer, I get the hourly fee punishes me for being more efficient and better at my job.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, if I just can't get something and I have to keep rewriting it and redoing it, and I'm just having a bad week and it takes me 3 times as long to do something, then the client suffers because they're paying me by the hour and I'm dragging my feet this week and I have a headache and I can't get it done.
Yeah.
So it's just not a really fair arrangement, I don't think. And what else was I going to say? Hold on. A thought just escaped my head. Oh, well, I think I covered it. It's just that it's a poor reflection of value. Let's say, for example, I spend an hour, 2 hours, let's say 2-3 hours on a piece, a white paper, something that sits on the website and it's just not converting and it's not bringing in anything. Or something that's happened in the past is a company asked me to write an ad for them really fast. And I put the ad together in 20 minutes. And I was able to do that in 20 minutes because I had been working with them and their audience for so long that I already knew all the pain triggers. I knew the messaging. I knew the company. I had all that built-in knowledge. So I was able to just put it on the paper very quickly. And that ad generated a lot of leads and a lot of traffic for them. So had I charged by the hour, I would have lost a lot of money on that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, what's crazy to me about charging hourly is it essentially means that people value something taking longer than it should. And that makes no sense. Like, that's my argument to a client. It's like, so you value, me taking 20 hours to do this and I'll just tell you that's how long it took me. They can't have it both ways. And I think, focusing on the value and the outcomes of your work as it relates to the client is always a better way to go than the outputs. You can write a million blog posts and never get one, person to your website, or you could write one epic piece of content and get 1 million visitors a month. Yeah. So I think there's definitely that balance, and it's a matter of valuing what you do and understanding the value and how it reflects in your clients. So,
yeah, something else I remember what I was going to say is the doctor metaphor, right? You don't go to the doctor and pay the doctor for the 20 minutes of FaceTime that you had with the doctor. You're paying for the doctor's ability to identify what's wrong with you and to give you a solution to make that pain go away, to use some healing. And along with that, and we're not even mentioning the gazillion years that it took the doctor to be able to do that. So it's the same way. People are not buying your writing. They're not buying your photography. They're not buying your fitness session just for, because they enjoy working out or they enjoy reading. No, they're looking what the result's going to be in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is all such good advice. And again, I feel like we are on the same wavelength there, because a lot of what you're describing is exactly what I teach. And that's because it's important. And I feel like we as marketers have been doing this for a while, take it for granted. But a lot of people, they just don't understand, or they don't value what they do. And if you know how to do digital marketing, like, people don't know how to do that, and they will pay you good money for it. But if you compete with other people who are wanting to charge hourly, then you're going to compete on price and you're going to lose and go poor doing it. So I tell my, community and people that I work with, just don't play that game at all. Do not go into the hourly realm, because it's just a battle to the bottom of the barrel. And especially in America or UK or all these other countries, you're not going to be able to build a sustainable business. People in the Philippines will do it for a fraction of the price. So yeah. And I've talked to a lot of freelancers about this, and every one of them has confirmed this, that typically when you're talking to a prospect who's pushing for low prices and you agree to it, those tend to be the most demanding, hardest to please people. Have you experienced that at all? Yes.
And people paying high dollar, they have this whole sense of respect, for what you do, and they're a pleasure to work with. I don't know what it is about the low paying clients, but they become really difficult.
Yeah, and I think the higher value clients value time also, and they appreciate when you can get something done for them. And again, not a matter of how long it takes, but just not wasting their time. Like, other people who have all the time in the world and no money, they just want to waste yours because they think you're going to save their business. But you want to work with people who have a business that's doing well. They're busy, so they're not going to bog you down, and you just focus on the outcomes that you can get for them.
Right. Awesome. So when you're selling your services and justifying your rates, just focus on the transformation that's going to deliver. If you were to make that a before and after transformation story, what does the before look like and what does the after look like? Talk about the after. Don't talk about the process of, how much time and the steps that it's going to take. Those are important things to cover in a conversation with a client. But when you're trying to persuade someone to do business with you, you want to focus on that transformation and paint a really clear picture of what that after looks like.
Yeah, and I think having them help you define it or let them define it on their own terms, you just ask the questions
Oh, yeah.
that bring it out of them. Because, again, I don't want to dive into value-based pricing right now, but
Yeah.
it's, essentially what you do for one client might not be as valuable as it is for another one. If you've got a restaurant making $500,000 a year, or a restaurant that's doing $10 million a year, and you do the exact same work for them, the one that's earning 10 million is going to have a much bigger, value for them. So I think it's important to speak with the client and have them define what the value is and make sure that it's even valuable enough for you to make a quote on, because you always want to quote, of course, below what the value is they'll ultimately receive. But if they're just like, oh, well, it might be worth a few $100s to me, it's like, well, my rate's a few $1,000s. So this isn't going to work. So yeah, having them define that. And then it's really easy to come back with them the price. Great. You told me in our conversation, this is going to be worth $100,000 to you over the year. My rate's $1,000 a month. So I think, having them define that's important.
Great point. Yes. Yes. I'm glad you brought that up.
Cool. Very cool. So we'll wrap this up. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I'd love just maybe you to, any advice, parting advice you'd have for someone who is in a 9-to-5 right now. They know they want to make, the leap to entrepreneurship, but they're afraid, they're a mental block, they're in their own head. What advice would you give to that person?
First, let people around you, people you trust, people in your network know that you're taking these steps, because they want you to do well, and they're going to keep their eyes open for opportunities for you. Second, I see a lot of freelancers get totally stuck because, oh my gosh, I have to define my niche, however you say that, before I move forward. Oh my gosh, I have to nail my website. I have to have all my ducks in order. None of these things has to be permanent. They can just treat them as small experiments. And I think that helps with the anxiety level. If you think, I'm just going to try this direction for a while, I'm going to make this experiment, and then adapt as you go.
Yeah. Move fast and fail and learn.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the only way to do it. And I still do it with my own business. I test things that don't work all the time. And it's just a continuation of, learning what works and what doesn't. So Andrea, really, really great interview, really solid advice. I appreciate you and your time. Why don't you tell my audience where they can go if they want to learn more about you, if you've got a lead magnet you want to point them to, and I can drop some links below the video. Just let me know.
I'll just share my web address, andreaemerson.com. And I have a group for writers on Facebook, which is Freelance B2B Writers. But if you forget that, just go to andreaemerson.com.
Okay, well, I'll make sure to drop some links below. But for everyone who tuned in, thank you so much for spending a little bit of your day with us. If you got any questions, feel free to drop them below, and I'll make sure to get to them. And if you like this, go ahead and subscribe on YouTube or like my page on Facebook, and you can stay updated with all the latest episodes. Again, we have Andrea Emerson here today. Such a great interview, Andrea, and we'll talk very, very soon. See you guys.
Oh, thank you very much. Bye-bye.